Hello everyone, welcome to the video. John Bodine here with Redemptive Psych. And in this video, we're going to cover what I believe is the most important figure in all of Jung's work. This is a figure that the application of is wide, it is practical, it is impractical, it can be applied to the most technical, boring matters, it can be applied to the biggest metaphysical, religious matters. It has a application in any context. I have been using it and experimenting with it for years. I think it's extremely powerful, extremely helpful, and it's going to be something we're going to return to as we start doing more talks about the depths of the human mind, the shape of the human mind, how this affects our personality, why there's multiple aspects of ourselves. The application is very relevant here and in other parts of life. Now, this is from Jung's Ion, which is a deep dive into aspects of the self. Now, the first few chapters of Ion are very important. They cover his ideas about, our home base personality, our ego, the more hidden parts, the shadow, and a couple other concepts. But in the back, in the last third or so, are these figures that are historical representations of aspects of the human spirit, aspects of the human soul. So I'm going to briefly explain the figure, and then instead of explaining it, I'm going to use it and show you some examples of it. So in the middle, we have a concept, we have an idea, we have potentially a word, we have something that we're trying to understand in more totality. And in order to use this figure, you have to grant the assumption that there will be four essential parts that concept or idea boils down to. So the most relevant one here, if we plug in human being into the middle, and we boil that down into four essential components, we get something like body, we get something like soul or spirit, we get something like the heart, and something like the mind. We get these separate pieces that are part of the whole. Okay, now let's dig into some other examples. With the four elements, this is a well-known one. We have water, air, earth, and fire. Now, one of the rules of how these models work is that the one that is directly opposed to it, the one that's directly across the axis, is the most opposite. It is the least like the one on the other side. So E would be the least like C, but still part of the overall thing. Now, you could argue here about, is air or fire more opposed to water? That's actually an important discussion, because the way we're going to use this figure in the future, those technicalities are going to really matter. But the idea here is that the one that's on the top and the bottom are like the furthest apart, and the one that are on the sides are still as far apart, but conceptually speaking, not as far. Meaning, like with the example here, with the seasons, there is nothing further apart than summer and winter. Those are the extreme of the extremes. Spring and fall, while opposite of each other, share a more mild quality. That is one aspect of this model that you can apply. Now, in my experiments, connecting these with like the attachment styles, you can see this here of the secure attachment is, the stable one, the sought after one. The opposite of that is as far away as you can get from secure, which is one of the newer ones they added, disorganized attachment. A disorganized attachment oscillates mostly between avoidant and anxious, meaning it is the least secure attachment because in of itself, it is not stable. And then avoidant and anxious are obviously the other two pieces there. Now, one concept that's really helpful philosophically, if you're into philosophy, is in Aristotle's Ethics, where he talks about the golden mean. Okay, the golden mean is about morality, it's about virtue, and he argues that between two extremes, between an excess of one characteristic and a deficiency, is the moral expression of a virtue, or the virtuous expression of a characteristic. I think he defined bravery, that was the golden mean, as something between rashness and cowardice. Now, if you take that idea and you multiply it, you say, okay, there's 2 extremes, now there's 4 extremes. We get a more specific, targeted, and refined definition of what that virtue might actually mean. So just as an example, if you have cowardice and rashness, you might have something like aggression and passivity here, where it creates 4 quadrants, where this might be a combination of cowardice and passivity, and then you have a combination of cowardice and aggression, and vice versa with rashness. Okay, so there's other ways here that this model interacts with philosophy. Aristotle's concept is really helpful here. So if this is interesting to you, I would encourage you to start playing with this. I've played with it with like different seasonings, like salty, sour, bitter, sweet. You have to, like I said, you have to grant the assumption that there are 4 pieces to it, and then challenge that assumption through experimenting with it. Well, I think there's only 3 fundamental aspects here. I think there's 6. I think there's 10. And through that, it'll help you apply this mental model to your own life. Particularly if you're a type who's low in extroverted thinking, like the INFJ, the ISFJ, the ENFJ, the ESFJ. Particularly those types, I think this can be really helpful. It's been helpful for me for that reason, because this is an extroverted thinking model that will help stabilize your thinking and develop a greater understanding, even if you don't have a lot of awareness of extroverted thinking. Now, if you're more familiar with the personality psychology stuff, you might remember this figure, a version of it, something like this, being present in John Beebe's work, where he talks about the archetypes of personality, where on the top and bottom are the hero function, and then opposed to that is our inferior function, and then our parent function and our child function are opposed to each other. So again, this is very relevant to the work that we're going to be doing here, but you can take it and use it in your own life, and it has been very helpful for me in all different contexts, and it's an important beginning to the next phase of the content we're going to be moving into. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.